This session is sponsored by Quinny Wine Intelligence, the undisputed leader for consumer sensory and attitudinal real-time data and analytics solutions for the wine industry. And VinExpo New York, where the world of wine and spirits meets in North America.
All right, welcome back. We're now going to shift to Through the Distributor's Eyes, Advice from the Field. We are fortunate enough to have with us three industry experts: Mike Deloche, owner and president of MD Wine Industry Consulting. Nice to have you here, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Adam Pizer, VP of Business Development for Wine at Breakthrough Beverage.
Thank you.
And then lastly, Philana Bouvier, VP of Fine Wine Supplier Business Development at RNDC. It's great to have you guys here today. So we're going to start off casual discussion, but I want to remind the audience at any time you can submit a question through our chat channel. So thanks. We're really excited to have the multiple perspectives from the distributor and consulting views of the industry. So let's start off with our first question. So this pandemic, when it hit, guys, what was the immediate impact on day-to-day activities? Adam, why don't you kick us off with your thoughts on what changed?
Absolutely. Thanks, Laura, and thanks for having us. I think there were two main thoughts from your standpoint. The first was safety. And, we were really mostly concerned about safety for our employees, for our supplier partners, as well as our customers. So on top of following all the CDC guidelines, we created our own set of guiding principles to help us create a uniform approach across our entire network to make sure that, all areas were remaining safe, from our drivers to our frontline, salespeople and everybody in between. So I think safety was number one. The second was the significant channel shift and the mix and how drastically that changed immediately on day one. The on-premise basically shut down at 100%. And so we had to really evaluate all the changes. So we looked at it in three ways. One was the on-premise and redeploying those on-premise resources to apply them to the channels that were really doing most of the business now. Second was on top of, again, keeping our off-premise sales and field sales managers and everybody safe, how to do business with the new retail in the new off-premise. And that's everything from resets to how they were placing orders through our e-com system, which is called ProV. And, our e-com platform was basically 98% for the on-premise. And that, the new buzzword in our business is pivot. Everybody needed to learn to pivot to. So we saw huge increases with our retail customers using our e-com platform. And then finally, we really evaluated this emerging premise, B2B and B2C, like the Drizzlies and Reserve Wine Bars and Instacarts. And we really had to make sure that we were effectively and efficiently servicing all of those platforms as well. So I think safety was first and foremost, for sure, for everybody involved. And then really evaluating the channel shifts and making sure that we were deploying resources and effectively servicing the market.
Great, thanks. Philana, any things to add from your perspective at RNDC?
Yes, absolutely. In following what Adam Pizer said and in complete agreement, and also, following government policy and the standards, we created best-in-class standards for all of our customers and suppliers to ensure that everyone felt safe, which was the most important thing, is that we wanted the safety for our employees. And immediately you saw, and with what Adam was saying, this immediate shift into retail, which, and also online, which is e-premise. At RNDC Youngs, we are absolutely focused on the digital transformation. We have an incredible leadership team that supports this and is able to be nimble and flexible with our customers and suppliers. So we've actually have some fantastic leaders, and we have a new SVP for e-commerce and digital transformation, Tracy Ariel, and also her counterpart, who is the SVP of marketing, Robert Oliveras. And the two of them with their teams have made some incredible results in ensuring and evolving our business to take care of the customers first and foremost. So that's the one thing that we, and it was immediate because you saw this huge change in the retail sector. And one of the things I think that provides a little bit of a false narrative, which is something that we actually challenge everyone to look at, is, you have wine suppliers that are doing very, very well in the retail sector. And you hear a lot of supplier, the community saying, well, they're going to comfort brands, which is true. And they're going to brands that are loyal, but they're also going to brands that are readily available in the stores. And it really is about being sophisticated in retail and making sure that you are as convenient in the most convenient places. Because if you're going to the store now, people are getting in and out of there as quickly as possible. So it's really the suppliers that can control the space and the retail space that are getting picked up.
Great, that's really helpful. And this sort of goes to my next question. I'd like to drill in a little more detail, and Mike would love to get your perspective here as well. With regards to servicing accounts with that immediate shift to off-premise, can you talk a little bit more from the supplier standpoint? Obviously, you guys are watching sort of all the supplier players that you interact with, all of your partners. What are some of the best practices that you all are implementing and seeing implemented in the market to ensure that the support of those accounts and servicing those accounts is really responsive and adaptive to this new environment?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind starting, that'd be great.
Sure, no worries. So first of all, I just want to say on the last question, I wanted to echo the sentiments of Philana and Adam. Their comments are spot on. And, just to reinforce that by saying the accounts definitely have, immediately began to stretch and hybridize and work with other businesses to try to digitize and transform and expand their businesses. So in terms of best practices, obviously the digital platforms came to the fore. Safety first, obviously. Those protocols were put in place. Everybody wanted to find out, first of all, what those protocols were and follow them to the letter as much as possible. We all needed to figure out how to interact with each other right away. Some accounts, called a moratorium on physical meetings, obviously. So how do you drop off samples? How do you get samples to people? A lot of our suppliers, instead of dropping off 750s, they would come up with breaking them down into 100 milliliter samples so we could spread them around, that sort of thing. So there was a lot of innovation in the market that I think is here to stay.
Great. It's really interesting. I'd love to hear, Philana and Adam, your all's thoughts on anything that you're seeing. This sort of gets into my next question, but winery accounts, how, the best ones in response, how are they responding? So just really thinking about sort of those best practices that our audience here can take and learn from, whether they're a small supplier or a large supplier, to be most responsive in this new environment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that's important, there's a couple things. First, when it comes to looking at on how you want to sell and what is going to sell and how to support your customers, moving your on-premise pricing into retail. Move your pricing, do a price analysis of your brand and understand what price points you need to be at, and move that funding from the on-premise to the chain side. That's very important, because if you're not using that funding, then it's important to remain relevant. And that's, I think that's in order to be convenient and to be available to your customers is very important. Improving your digital assets, making sure that you have enhanced digital visibility online, and understanding how people are shopping is very important. And customization, make sure you're personal. It's important that for all suppliers, and I'm a wine club member at a few wineries, reach out to them on their birthday, reach out to them on their anniversary. If you know that there's a wedding in the family and they were unfortunately had to cancel, then reach out to them, send them a gift and say, we're so sorry to cancel, but we hope that we can celebrate on your next anniversary or celebrate your wedding next year. Because the way we treat people during this time will be remembered next year.
Oh, great insight. Adam, any additions?
Yeah, those were great, actually. And I agree with everything they both said. I think to add maybe two things. One was the virtual world is here to stay. And I think we had everyone from winemakers to owners for a lot of, fine wine and larger wineries and boutique and you name it, doing these incredible online events where they would ship samples and they were real, to Falana's point, got real personal with people. There were Zoom calls similar to this, and the results were amazing. And we have country clubs and the on-premise that's open right now, wanting to sign up for more and more of those online events regularly. So that was great. The other thing I think from a supplier standpoint, our partners have been so great. They've all just jumped in. This is unprecedented right now, and nobody has a roadmap. But I've seen everything from owners of large fine wine suppliers, owners of small independent wineries jump in, and they're making calls to retail now. They're getting out into the trenches and doing things. They're prioritizing what they need to be doing to the channels that are relevant right now. And they're really, we're in this together. And so it's really been, it's forced everyone to become very creative and completely align on what the strategy is now. And we're all learning as we go, but I have to say that the wine community has really stepped up, and it's been great to see. And some incredible things that I think will last the test of time are in place now based on this horrible tragedy that's happened. But I think we're going to see some of the things that have been put into place sustain, and the virtual world is here to stay for sure. So
great, thanks. Mike, I want to go back to a question or a comment that you made earlier around innovation. What are some of the innovations you're seeing that are in response to this new environment? You talked about breaking down samples into smaller sizes. Great adaptation. What else are you seeing?
Well, I was really surprised by how quickly a lot of our supplier partners and just in general immediately realized that their digital platforms were antiquated and they needed to do something. They weren't sure what they needed to do, and they just immediately sprang into action. They started doing virtual tastings, became a thing. They've become refined over time. That's something that that all the wineries have pretty much done now, since their guests could not come to them anymore in the DTC world. They've brought their wineries out to their guests. They found the same thing was very effective in going to, as Adam and Falana were saying, is going to their accounts. And touching on what I was saying before, where you can't go in and it's limited how much you can interact directly with your accounts. You can meet with them like we're meeting right now and get samples out to them in advance and actually have a very effective sit-down tasting with them and their staff. And it's actually a much more efficient, as Adam was saying, much more efficient way to do things. And you can, instead of everyone, used to be you would go and you get in a queue of reps waiting at the bar to go see the decision maker and maybe one other person in a back room and taste through 4 wines and no one's talking, oftentimes. It just depends on the setting and the circumstance, but that was usually that. Now everybody's talking to each other. It's really opened up the world. Going to smaller sizes for samples is a big innovation. I touched on that before. And then everybody getting together. So there's this cross-pollination of on-premise and off-premise getting together. On-premise has flexed, and they've gone out to the digital world. So an account in San Francisco that was selling one of my suppliers Cabernet products from Napa, they were really doing a lot of it with by the glass, and then they had a retail space. Well, that all shut down. They immediately switched to online and kept that trend going. So it's the big flex going to digital and communication. That's really improved. And I hope that that's here to stay. I believe it is.
You know, the positive is, and what makes the wine business so great is it is still a relationship business, and we're in the people business. So one of the positives out of this terrible pandemic that's happened is it's forced us all to communicate better and to be closer with our families, to be closer with our friends. And I think and wine brings everyone together. So it's really made a great impact, and it's forcing people to think outside of the box, be more creative, and also improve their communication skills. And I'm sure we've all been on several Zoom calls where people don't know the mute button or they can hear all the background noise. Now there's virtual etiquette. And so there's a different way of life, but it's also become more efficient. So it's great news. And you also have the wine buyer now that actually is more appreciative. When they receive samples, they're actually going to taste it and they're going to reach out to their sales rep. So it actually, I think, will enhance the way the tasting experience is and the way people buy wine. But then also we have an ability as well to learn from each other and learn the best practices from all of our great business partners.
Anna, you talked a little bit about digital assets. Can you share a little bit more? And this is the time that I've seen wineries hunkering down and really revisiting some of the ways that they operate and reflect themselves in the digital space. Do you have any specific examples of that for this audience, what they should be thinking about in terms of optimization and refinement of those digital assets?
Sure. We have 3 points. And of course, we have an amazing leader in both Tracy Ariel and Robert Oliver. So they're definitely a lot more eloquent than I am, but I will be their cheerleader today. So a few things that we think about is you want to elevate the customer experience through online tools and enhanced sales teams and connectivity while expanding the supplier reach. So that means, making sure that you have high-res images, high-res videos, right? Connecting with people online. Those are important things when it comes to enhancing digital assets. And also you want to support digital shelf product placement and content delivery and brand promotion via collaborative digital marketing programs and sales execution. So connecting the sales teams at the distributor level and making sure that you are communicating what your digital programs are and taking the time to walk through with your sales teams, here's what we're doing and here's how we are reaching out to the consumer. That's also very important, as well as personalization and customization. Make sure we know who our consumer is and who is drinking your wines, right? Is it the younger millennial? Is it going to be there's a lot of diversity in consumers right now. So we need to make sure that we're touching all aspects. And also, it's not just about the social media influencer, because at the end of the day, everyone is taking care of what they want to do at home. They're spending more time at home and they want to enjoy the experience. So make it fun for them. If there's a supplier that wants to ship them wine, make the opening the box experience fun. Make it where it's memorable and they actually, address them by their name versus, dear sir or madam. I think it's nice when people say, hey, by the way, hi, Falana. I noticed that you bought X and we wanted to introduce you to X. Or, your birthday was last month. What did you celebrate for your birthday? Those are all things that people remember. And lastly, as a partner, we want to target and reach consumers at the local market to increase brand awareness and promote digital sales and marketing campaigns. So be open to ideas and be open to some third-party vendors similar to a Drizzly or an Instacart, where if you look at the way they're reaching consumers, it's good to, flattery is what's what they say is imitation is the best form of flattery. Take a look what other people are doing and it's okay. You can use their ideas and collaborate, reach out. If there's someone that you see that is really, really excelling in digital assets, I pick up the phone and I'll reach out to that person. What are you doing? Even though you may not be a partner of mine today, I am going to let you know that what you're doing is excellent and it's best in class.
If I could jump in really quick and just expand on what Falana was saying here. Another part of your digital toolbox as a supplier that you probably have, and maybe you have it, maybe you don't know what it is, but you probably have a CRM package as part of whether you have VinNow or something like that, but it's customer relationship management. And it's a very powerful tool that you can use to combine your Excel list or your database that you have in existence now, first name, last name, email address, and you can, as Falana was saying, customize your communications directly to that person. Hi, name, how are you doing in city? Hope everything is well there. Listen, I'm releasing my, these are all points of data that you can customize for that particular customer, and you can get out to 300, 400, 500 customers at a crack. So it's a very powerful tool, and it's underutilized. And at our company, we use it every day for our suppliers, and it's very powerful.
Great. Adam, what are you seeing in innovation, either with suppliers to consumers or suppliers to retail customers and the distributor?
That's a great question. Because it's a really interesting time to try to innovate right now, where to Falana's point earlier, and that is all the data showing that a lot of comfort brands are working. And coming out of 2019, where wine was challenged, and it was flat to up 1, depending on who you're looking at. So ironically, I think COVID has helped to bring back the wine industry. And if you look at all the numbers right now through COVID, wine is actually flourishing in retail right now, and that's a good sign too. So we are starting to see some innovation coming for sure. I think pack sizes and boxed wine and categories that are truly growing, we're seeing some of that within some of our suppliers.
If I could just jump on Adam's point and amplify, it's not only the comfort brands, it's comfort categories. We managed to, during COVID, launch 2 brands with a new distributor, which is almost unheard of. But the reason being is they're well-priced Napa cabs. They're mid-priced Napa cabs, and that's what people are looking for. Imagine an estate cab in the $50 to $60 range. The world wants those. It's a category. And if you're a brand person and you want that brand, that's fine. That's working really well. But if you're a category person and you're looking to innovate within a specific category, that's doing well as well.
Great.
And to this point, and we don't have to, the thing I found that was interesting that was doing is the retail sector, the actual brick and mortar spaces are shrinking. So you see less outlets and less people spending money. That's really important. So you're almost providing a false narrative when you're saying, okay, retail is so strong, it's growing. But if you look at the retail online presence that is sophisticated, like the wine.coms or Total Wine's done a fantastic job, those are the ones that are winning. So there's actually less SKUs being sold, but the bigger brands are more convenient. And it's really about the retail space and being sophisticated in that space. You also see smaller winery producers that are very, very successful because they become nimble. So it's about being flexible. And if you're nimble and flexible and you can offer pricing that go to a retailer, have them support your pricing while remaining price integrity, where you can move through some volume and do the price analysis, that's who you should partner with. But the longer a smaller boutique winery waits, the more, unfortunately, aggressive they're going to have to become on their pricing. So really, it is about acting now and ensuring that you are flexible and nimble to get into the store and make sure you're convenient for the consumer.
Yeah.
And I guess 2 things I would add to that. One is, and I think we're seeing a lot of smaller wineries be more nimble. The DTC world is increasing every month. And so, smaller wineries have deployed their resources to ensure that they are, really putting a lot of energy and effort into their DTC. So, which they need to do right now since the on-premise channel is so challenged. So I would say, watch out for DTC for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I'm curious on on-premise. I've heard some mention of on-premise accounts asking for suppliers to pay to hold space. How is that world? What is the expectation that you all are seeing in on-premise accounts that suppliers need to be aware of in order to anticipate sort of the time when we come out of the epidemic?
We've been watching the on-premise and tracking it since day one of the pandemic. And so, for the first 60 days, it was really down about 100%, maybe 95 to 100%. We're slowly starting to see it come back. But it's interesting. You really have to dive into the numbers to understand what it means. Our penetration within Breakthrough currently is up to somewhere close to 70, 75, almost 80%, which is great. But the revenue is still down almost 70%. So it's telling you that restaurants are reopening and they're starting to order, but they're depleting their current inventory and they're not changing a lot. They're not looking to add new things, and their business is still really, hurting right now. So I think you really need to evaluate the numbers and know that while penetration is up, revenue is still really down. There are some sub-channels within the on-premise that are flourishing more than others. Country clubs where people can go right now and they can play golf and they can dine at a 50% capacity or do virtual events, things like that. Those are flourishing more than any of the other sub-channels within the on-premise. Fine dining is still really challenged in most of our markets, mostly due to capacity issues and quite frankly, people just not feeling comfortable about going out. If you look at two markets that we operate in, Arizona and Florida, Arizona was on an amazing trajectory in the on-premise. They were heading to that, penetration up to 70, 80%, and revenue was only down about 40 or 50. Then you saw some spikes in Arizona, over the last 60 days, and that really kind of set them back. Then I think if you look at a large state like Florida, it's kind of the tale of two states where you've got Miami, Broward, and Dade counties where they do a tremendous amount of business, where they were having, high spiked cases and they were really challenged. But outside of that, they were, the cases were very low and the business in those areas was doing very well. You were seeing numbers where the revenue was down about 40 or 50% only there versus, 80 or 90. So I think it's a mixed bag for sure. And it depends on, not just the state itself, but within the regions too.
Well, and to Philana's point earlier, the ability to be nimble and adjust course, given that this epidemic is moving and new hotspots are popping up and dropping off on almost a daily basis. The ability to shift course, which I know from a distributor standpoint, you all are juggling as well.
And one thing I'll add too is this is very important. I want to make sure that the audience knows this. The on-premise is still vitally important when it comes to building wine brands and also sustaining wine brands in this business. So we are 100% focused on the on-premise. Some of the things that we're doing, especially with RNDC and Young's, and I'm sure at Breakthrough, is assisting our customers to help them open back up. Right? We want to make sure that we help them open back up. Whether it is that we work with suppliers to collaboratively provide resources as far as umbrellas, or helping them bring in some of the things that will make a customer feel safe when they walk in, right? Making sure the takeout experience is valuable for them when they can go online and buy wine and also do takeout is very important. Doing to-go cocktails is also something that we've seen a lot of. So we are seeing, as well as what, in agreement with Adam, and what we're doing is there is an increase because people want to go back to normalcy. They want to go back and eat out again, right? And so, but you also see that outdoor dining, it's important to be flexible. So now, I was with a friend of mine that owns a restaurant, and outdoor heaters are out of stock. Who would have thought that outdoor heaters are out of stock? And back in the day, they cost $1,200, and now you can buy it for like less than $100. So if you think about that change, right, and what people are doing, think about the people that are doing really well. It's important to understand that we have to help provide resources and solutions to our partners so that way they can be successful. But the on-premise is still equally vitally important.
Yeah, and for suppliers to hear that message, that it's not just the resources coming from the distributors, but you all are looking to suppliers to help support that effort of opening back up in on-premise as well. Great. Mike, I've got a question for you. What do you see outside of California? Adam hit on it a little bit, some of the metros and micro markets and the impact there. But how have markets outside California reacted, and any differences than what we're seeing in California?
Well, to echo and amplify Adam's point, it is market by market, and even within a state like in Florida, Sarasota, and the Panhandle might be doing relatively well, whereas other counties not so much. There are examples of markets that are doing relatively well, even on premise, and certainly the point that I was talking with my colleagues the other day was that in California, the mere presence of 4,000 suppliers creates a totally different environment than out of state. So those medium to small suppliers that were quick to move to partnerships out of state with retailers and in some cases on-premise partners, such as country clubs. I have one producer who does extensive weekly winemaker events that are virtual with country clubs. Everybody's in their homes, and the country club supplies the food and all of that, and it's pretty amazing to see what they've done. But a specific case, I have one supplier who is with one retailer is going to sell 500 cases of Napa Cab this year with this one retailer who's in Wisconsin. And that's because they had a relationship, and that retailer doesn't have 4,000 people trying to sell to them. In California, the first reaction from most of the suppliers is I will go to all the names I know in the Bay Area because it's a tank of gas away. Well, there's another 3,999 guys doing the same thing. So if you go to a secondary or tertiary market, you can have some great success, especially if you've built up that relationship over the years.
That's a good point. I'm just going to add to it to say, two of our most challenging markets are DC and Nevada, for obvious reasons in both. But in Reno, the business is back substantially more than it is in Las Vegas, for example. So you really have to find where the business is being done now and go attack it. And that's, in the on-premise and the off-premise as well. And while there are still, tremendous challenges based on, protocols and guidelines and what's happening, there's still a lot of business being done out there. So to Mike's point, I think we all just need to keep searching for it and do it in the safest way we can. But it exists for sure.
What do you see of these changes that are happening as a result of COVID? Which of these changes are here to stay?
Definitely virtual programming, right? That's here to stay. Who would have thought? I mean, I didn't even know what Zoom was until March. And you're seeing a lot of different platforms that are happening and the virtual meeting. And you're also finding that it's more efficient to, what we mentioned earlier. And I think connecting with people on a personal level is definitely here to stay. Being able to be flexible, to understand your digital marketing. I think, understanding just the e-commerce sector and the new e-premise is so important. It's going to help not only the chains, but also the on-premise. So it's all going to help. There's so many different resources now available to ensure that there's successful buying, right? I mean, a lot of our sales reps are doing virtual buying and virtual blitzes and virtual sales tours with our customers. And it's a new way to present. And I think for the wine supplier that's relying on maybe, which is also very important, but relying on the 30-page PowerPoint, I think people are more quick now, right? They want to see things on a one-pager. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because then it forces you to kind of have that 10-second elevator pitch to really get across what your points are. So there's been some really, unfortunately during this time, there's also been some positives in the way that we communicate.
I just want to amplify Falana's point here and say, GoToMeeting has been around for 2 decades. And as an early adopter of tech, I tried to, instead of getting on a plane and staying in a hotel room, and it's very expensive, I tried to get all of my business partners to do that with me. It's a lot more efficient. This is going to be great. Well, this has forced us to do that. And I think it's great. I think it's here to stay. And another thing that we've talked about forever is PDFs. We're going to save a lot of trees and get rid of a lot of paper. Well, that was just a lot of talk. Paper just piled up. You get a PDF, and the first thing you do is print it out. Well, that's not so much anymore. We're not passing paper around at sales meetings. So this has really forced us to, adopt a lot of these tools and best practices that have actually been in existence for a long time. I think it's a very good thing. I think it's a very efficient thing. I also think that a behavioral characteristic of this that really is not being focused on is as much as when email came around and it got rid of snail mail and the fax machine went away. This has made things much more efficient, and that sort of speed and efficiency that is here to stay as well.
All right, we have time for one more questions or closing thoughts from each of you. What is the one piece of advice you would give to wineries to maintain their presence in the market? And
I can go for it. Yeah, sure. Be open, compassionate, and also forgiveness, right? This is a tough time for everybody. This is about mental toughness right now. And also making sure that you have compassion for not only yourself, but for your employees and your customers and your partners and your vendors. Because we all have to exercise patience and also be open to creativity and new ideas to ensure that we're flexible and we can move quickly, because everyone's on the same page. And think about what's happening across the country and really globally. There's a lot happening. There's social distance learning for moms and dads. How are you able to operate at home and then operate a full-time job and teach your children? How can having all this time spent by yourself, understanding that, there is a mental capacity here that needs to be respected and to really understand true kindness. So as we're working through the day and we're trying to do our best to move through business and to partner with, collaborate in a collaborative spirit, we also have to remember to be patient and kind to ourselves.
Great advice. Mike, what's your closing piece of advice?
I would say, and this is kind of global advice anyway, we as a grower, winemaker, and seller of wines, historically, don't give up. You can't give up. You have to do it one day at a time, put one foot in front of the other. You have to take it historically. So yeah, these are unprecedented times, obviously, but then just take a moment and look at a really old grapevine. Look at a grapevine that's been around for, old Zin vine that's been around for 100 years, and recognize that it's still growing grapes. It's been through the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and 13 years when you couldn't legally make alcohol. Kind of puts things in perspective. And that would be my statement to everyone in the wine business today.
Yep, we will persevere. Adam, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, I think Falana and Mike both said it really well. I would just add, I think staying nimble for sure. I think we all need to. I think we all need to stay humble on all sides because that will serve everybody well. And I think finding the balance between the art and the science, because we love this business so much and there's so much art to it. And I think that's the passion and that's the part that we all love. And there's a lot of time right now for the science too. So there's a lot of learnings and we certainly are all learning right now as well. So that's what I would say.
For sure. From challenge and adversity comes opportunity. Thank you all very much for your time. Great to hear from you. I learned an awful lot. I know the audience did as well, and some great questions coming in. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks.
Hello again, everyone. George Christie here at the Wine Industry Network. I hope you enjoyed the first day of the Wine Industry Sales Symposium. I want to say a big thank you to our speakers for sharing so much expertise, along with our moderators for leading such terrific conversations today. Just as a reminder, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for our Direct to Symposium. And again, the entire day is dedicated to the direct consumer channel. Once again, I want to thank all of our sponsors. Without their support, we couldn't offer this conference for free to the entire wine industry. Commerce 7, Copper Peak Logistics, Orion Wine Software, Outshinery, Queenie Wine Intelligence, the Digest of Wine and Spirits Law, The Good Company, VinExpo New York, and Wine Shipping. Thank you all so much for your support. Finally, I want to thank all of the attendees who watched today for all the questions you submitted. You helped make the first day of the Wine Industry Sales Symposium incredibly interactive and interesting. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.